friends. We are back. Your favorite podcast of the week. It's Location Weekly. It's episode number 585. We're recording on September the 6th. Yes, it is a new month. It is the fall season upon us. The kids are back to school, all of that. So, Ariana, how are you?
I am hanging in there, It's like just a lot happening, trying to keep up with it all and manage to maybe get a few hours of sleep. But it's good. I'm looking forward to fall and like a new routine for everybody. But still, the transition is a little chaotic. But yeah, all good,
Yeah.
no complaints.
Right. Well, it never stops in the world of location, location data, and all that. There's lots going on. So, as usual, we have four stories for you this week. So, we'll jump right to it, and Ariana will kick us off with an interesting automotive one.
All right. So, I'm always thinking about the autonomous vehicle and how I'm excited about that because I think, well, hopefully by the time my children are driving ages, I should say, that they will not necessarily have to be super attentive all the time, that a vehicle will maybe, take care of that. So the other side of that, though, is what about everybody who's not in a vehicle? And how are autonomous vehicles going to be working with them? Maybe that's pedestrians or people on a bicycle. And something that's interesting here is that Ford, the motor company, obviously, has filed a patent recently for a smartphone app that would allow cars that are in their self-driving mode to alert or communicate with pedestrians via their smartphones. So it's very interesting, right? Thinking about how I commute into the office now or going into the city and getting alerts as I'm on my commute and crossing roads that there's, a vehicle that's in its autonomous zone is very interesting to think about. So the app that they described in their patent would just alert what they're calling vulnerable road users, so anyone not riding in a car, about this presence. So, they're trying to gather this information via machine learning, have in order to predict an impact event, which is just terrible sounding, right? Between the autonomous vehicle and the mobile device. So there's obviously several problems with this approach. And, Ford's not really the first one to think about this. So not too long ago, there was the Federal Highway Administration. They got in on this and they had kind of opened up to similar technologies to say like, hey, pitch us, let's figure out how to create this all encompassing vehicle app. I think it was kind of their failed attempt at a pedestrian safety month, which basically was like, don't get hit by a car. From the summary that I read from this article, which was a little bit comical. But there's several problems here because, you've got consumer behavior. How do you change consumer behavior as most of us, who are walking down the road are typically not looking at our phones. We shouldn't be engaging on our phones. Maybe we have headphones in when we're talking, but hopefully we are alert to what's happening around us. Also, the communication that's outlined here is happening in one direction. It's a push to the consumer, the pedestrian, if you will, versus, a conversation. Additionally, the data capture, storage, privacy, all of those things have not really been outlined here. Clearly, this is a patent application, so there's no details on if this app's going to be brought, into fruition. What does it mean? It's not necessarily indicative that it will be executed, but it is worth noting that this is something to consider because there has been, data that's showing there's an increase in fatality in car accidents as well as in accidents with pedestrians. And so it's something for us to keep top of mind as we move down this road of, autonomous vehicles and everything else. So interesting, but what do you think?
Yeah, very interesting. I think it's a fascinating topic. I think there's been lots of studies and lots of discussion and innovation around the sort of machine to machine communication, so car to car in particular, or vehicle to vehicle. That can help sort of, as we move to, a society where, there's more of these than not on the roads, having sort of, proper spacing of vehicles on highways and roads that allow for, optimal speed and traffic and less, congestion and slowdowns and things like that these are some of the benefits of autonomous vehicles and driving when they can detect other vehicles and, sort of adjust accordingly and have a nice, smooth, even flow. When it comes to the pedestrians and people around, though, obviously, you don't necessarily have connectivity to them. So I think this notion of this patent, I think addresses, that concept or that idea. I think there are, as we'll talk more about on this show, a lot of privacy issues around this. You're asking essentially people to share their location and, with a vehicle to be able to communicate that. So I think there's certainly benefits to it. Lives could be saved. So I see a lot of value in it, but I think there's a lot to be figured out here. And I think the insurance companies too, that have been looking at autonomous vehicles and what that means for the future, and what insurance premiums look like, and the math models, the actuarial models around what this looks like, and the impact on pedestrians and humans, and being able to make decisions on the fly as to the lowest human cost or financial cost or things like that, all factor into this. So fascinating. All right, on to our second story. So there's a company out there that you've probably heard of by now called Radius Networks, and they have a platform called FlyBuy, which is one of the leading location technology tools out there. So, an SDK type of tool that works with a lot of restaurants and retailers in the marketplace in terms of background location data and notifications and things like that. And they've announced that an integration on the Toast platform. So Toast is a cloud-based digital platform for the restaurant community. They have over 180 partners that are in the Toast ecosystem today, which is really specialized around restaurant operators, everything from sales, POS technology, ordering technology, to the delivery aspect of it. And that's where FlyBuy specializes in particular. So they offer a turnkey pickup solution that works across the in-store operations, the curbside, and the drive-through channels all in one. It's really good at optimizing and reducing customer and delivery driver wait times. So it can do the kind of thing that we've seen for a long time in the Starbucks app, where you place your order through the mobile app, and then it shares your sort of location on the way to the store where you're ready to pick it up, and so it gives a notification to the barista to when to start making it, so that by the time you get there, it's hot, it's ready to go. Those kinds of things. So pick up orders based on true customer ETA, location, arrival events, all that kind of stuff. So I think FlyBuy and Radius Networks by extension has been at this for a long time. I think joining with the Toast ecosystem and network of other partners and all the brands that they work with can only serve them to quickly grow what they're doing. And the last thing I should say is Radius is one of the key sponsors this year at our Retail Loco event, so they will be there talking about how they do this, and you can meet them and their team in person. That is October 26th and 27th in Atlanta at Retail Loco. Any thoughts on this, Brianna?
Yeah, a lot of local restaurateurs here use the Toast, platform. So I'm very used to that. And I love this idea of just taking it a step further. I think about how one of my favorite experiences is shopping on the Target app, and when they actually have in stock what I'm looking for, and I just can drive up and pick it up, and they can see my location. They know when I arrive most of the time. I can also alert them that I've arrived. So all of that seamlessness, I love the idea of having that capability from a restaurant order pickup standpoint. And I also think of a lot of times when you're in more of a city setting, finding a parking space is really difficult. So being able to have somebody just bring it out to you when you're double parked and not have to kind of, do the drive around the blocks is super important. So I just think that this is something that is, one step like so much further, and it's a great integration for both of those partners. So let's move to something that we probably don't love to talk about, but it's very prominent in our industry today. And, there's a lot of privacy and legislation and review and, happening across the industry at many different angles. And this time, this one is hitting pretty close to home, a company that we've known for quite a while. The FTC has sued Kochava, stating that it is for sharing location data. So, this is kind of the latest in the location data, what I would call a media scare, a bit, but this is a little bit more severe, as it is the FTC that is suing the Idaho-based company. So they announced this last week. They're saying that they sold location data from hundreds of millions of mobile devices that could be used to track people at abortion clinics and other sensitive locations. So Kochava has said that the suit has had no merit, that it is a company that complies with all the laws, and that the FTC had a fundamental misunderstanding of their business. They also shared that, it has sourced 100% of the geo data that they collect and that they use for the marketplace, and that it is from all third-party brokers whom represent that the data comes from consenting consumers. So this is really a kind of a crazy thing, but it is not the first that we've heard of this. We've had, crackdowns for every other use case, it seems, that could be, whether that's tracking illegal immigrants or whether that is tracking the president, in the New York Times story. We've seen a lot of this come out over and over again. Also Kochava mentioned that they're in the process of voluntarily implementing a new tool that would block location data from sensitive locations. I think it's worth noting that Kochava has different areas of their business. This is one of their offerings. They're also known for measurement as a media or mobile measurement partner. And, if this is something that you would like to dive deeper into, I highly recommend the open letter that the CEO, Charles Manning, wrote, and is readily available. I think what's even more a twist in this story is that the lawsuit that was filed by the FTC happened, I think August 29th. However, prior to this, a few weeks prior to this, Kochava actually filed a declaratory judgment petition against the FTC. So they kind of started this by saying that, they were asking for something. And they were also feel that they have done nothing wrong. So they're trying to have better understanding, I think, of what the laws should be, how they should use the data, how it should be sourced. And I think everybody's looking for clarity there. And from a personal standpoint, I've known the Kochava team for a long time. I have, in my personal interactions, found them to be, a people and a team of integrity. So, I hope that there is, the truth that comes to the surface here. But something else is the commission is hosting an online forum tomorrow. It is open to the public, and anyone can sign up to speak. So if this is something that you want to, sign up and have something to say, you have a day to figure that out. But, I think at the end of the day, and from my knowledge of this type of data and working with this type of data across many providers, typically you're looking at healthcare facilities or as a point of interest. I don't think that anybody is specifically targeting something, beyond perhaps a place of faith or a healthcare facility. And to say that they're targeting abortion clinics, to me, seems pretty far-fetched. But I mean, again, that's a personal perspective. And I'm sure that, again, this can be twisted and construed for, fear-mongering purposes, or just to kind of pivot the overall perspective of the industry, and taint that. So I'm sure you have lots to say on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered it well, right? And this has been an ongoing media story. I think it's way more about, fear and, sort of people, building up their soapboxes, within government, to make a stand on certain things. And obviously there's a lot going on right now in the U.S. with the Supreme Court and Roe versus Wade, and, media then can lean into things like that and say, now, this data is going to be used, at abortion clinics, and this data is going to be used here and there and whatever. So you have a lot of that happening, right? And this is not new to us. Obviously, we've had similar media stories, with companies like Xmode and SafeGraph and others. But this data that we're talking about is completely the vast majority of these companies, Kochava, I echo what you said. Everybody I know there, everything I've ever seen from them is done with integrity. And I fully think that they're well within their rights to defend how they operate and their use cases around this. But the reality is that there's a media climate from this, and I think that's where it's coming from right now. And even going back just a couple of months, you have Senator Wyden from Oregon and his whole group with Senator Warren and all of them making their announcement back in, I think it was July, around the Health and Location Data Protection Act that they put out there. So I think there's a lot, since those wheels have been put in motion, and then the Supreme Court decision. And so I think the media is really just sitting on all of this and trying to find ways to keep this story moving, and to keep companies in the hot seat around this, which might be a good way to pivot to our final story as well, kind of along the same thinking. Now, our fourth and final story is not the FTC, but this time the FCC, the Communications Commission, has also made an announcement that they're launching an investigation, a formal investigation, into how the mobile carriers in the U.S. use and store location data. So there's a crackdown happening, across the board, whether it's the FTC or the FCC. They said that they want to investigate how mobile carriers are complying with agency rules that require carriers to fully disclose and to consumers how they're using and sharing that their data. And so I personally, I don't think a lot's going to come of this. We've seen lawsuits in the past come from the FCC against the the big mobile operators, in particular AT&T and T-Mobile and so on. They're saying that this investigation is the top 15 mobile carriers in the U.S. market, so it's much broader than that. And they have to, basically they have to, respond, which they've now done. They were given till August the 3rd to respond on how long they keep the data, where it's retained, what safeguards they have in place to protect the information, normal stuff, right? Even in my small startup, we have to, have answers to this information, if somebody were to come asking as well. So again, I think this is, you have government agencies, in the hot seat right now, these bills being put out there, from Senator Wyden and others. And you have a media that is, hungry, for stories of, misappropriation and abuse, when in fact, the vast majority of the companies in our industry, the mobile carriers included, and Kochava and others, aren't doing anything wrong. So that's my opinion. Any final thoughts?
No, I agree. This is just like a lot of it is, I think that we are looking for clarity as an industry. We want to have set parameters that span across at least an entire nation, if not, across, multiple continents, instead of having to adhere to different practices as we advertise and market and engage with consumers. So I think it's needed. I think as consumers, we want privacy. We want to be able to have control over our data. But, the witch hunt and I think the spinning stories for political gain is not the way to do it. And it's not going to benefit us as consumers, nor the industry as a whole.
And there you have it. That's our show for this week. Lots of controversy going on in our industry. You've been listening and watching episode number 585 of Location Weekly. Thank you, everybody, for your time, for listening and tuning in. Please reach out if you have story ideas. If you haven't bought your ticket yet for Retail Loco, we want to see you. We're back in person in Atlanta, October 26th and 27th. We'll all be there, and we're looking forward to hanging out with you too. So just go to retaillo.co, and you'll see the agenda there. Lots of great speakers from Kroger. Just got confirmation from IKEA, Rollins, others that are coming, new speakers to join us for the first time. So excited about that. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.